Welcome back, everyone, to the Florida Literacy Coalition Train the Tutor Trainer, session 4. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today. While we were waiting, people were putting different things in the chat box just to see answers that we want to get determined today before we move any further. So one of the questions, Zara mentioned that these will be recorded on YouTube and that they are available on YouTube. Let's see. So one of the questions is, what type of ongoing assessments do we, should we be using with our tutors, with their students to determine success? In your Google Share Drive, I do have an assessments folder. Actually, I have a few things in there. One of which is, I like the Where to Lit Start. I mentioned that I use Lit Start as my main book, and I like the Where to Lit Start. When you purchase the Lit Start book, you no longer get the Where to Lit Start assessments, but I have them scanned in there for you, and you can print them out. There's a tutor guide, and then there's the actual book that you use with the learner to do the assessment. It has little reading passages. It has little pictures that they can point to and see if there's the recognition there. So I use the Lit Start regularly. In your shared drive, I've also put the CASA's oral language assessment, and I've also put the different levels of assessment on there. What else? There's an intercambio assessment I put on there as well. We tend to use Voyager as well. I didn't put the Voyager on there, but Read is another one, ESLOA. Those are all in your Google Share Drive. I've put all those in your Google Share Drive to take a look at. So let's see, what else is in here for questions? Somebody was asking about Best Plus. Are there other ways to do assessments other than Best Plus? Does anyone use the LACES database? If so, is there a way to record learner progress in LACES? Does anybody know anything about LACES out there? And is there a way to record learner progress in LACES? That's a question that came through.
We use LACES. There may be, you can make custom adjustments to it. So you can record learner status, and right now it's waiting or assigned a tutor, or in the back inactive, because we don't delete a person once they've registered with us. That person is there forever, but their status may change from active to inactive to waiting for a tutor. I suspect that there is a way to record it, not measure, but to record outside measurements in the database. I don't know that for sure, can't promise, but I suspect there is.
Yeah, I've used other systems where you could scan up the assessment like in a PDF and then upload it. So that might be a possibility.
I don't remember running across it storing documents, but a digital score could probably be put in there somewhere.
Okay, great. I'm going to remind, yes, go ahead, Trish.
I didn't want to type this because it's a little extensive. So
Yes.
my thinking with the assessment is, I think we have some fantastic tutors that stay and develop these unbelievable relationships with the students. And my thinking is, not that you have a timeline, like after 5 years, you have to move on, or after 10 years. I think my thinking is, if there's some sort of an assessment, then the student can move to either online chats or things like that. How do you recommend we navigate that with the tutors and the students?
You know, it's funny, I was talking about this with another participant in this class, and that can be a common thing where they just never want to end that relationship. I I would leave it up to the tutor and the learner. If they want to keep meeting, I mean, and both are enjoying the relationship and they're both getting something out of it and goals are being met continuously, I don't see anything wrong with that. But other tutors may feel, it's, we're not best friends for life. So, I've seen both. I don't know if I'm answering your question, Trish, but
Well, you are. I think it's because we have such a waiting list and, we treasure their relationship. I just don't know, you did
Yeah.
answer the question. It's a tricky type of situation.
Yeah. So you're saying that you need to free up the tutors so that they can take on new learners.
I'd like to say that, but I know that they're doing a fabulous job and they developed a relationship and I understand that. I just don't know. There's so many other students that are in such need.
Yes.
Right.
I hear what you're saying, definitely. Do some of your tutors take on additional learners? Do some of your tutors take on 2 learners or 3 learners? Yeah, they do, right? Yeah. I know they're so giving, the tutors.
With lingering learners that have really made a lot of progress, sounds like they need to be recruited as tutors.
I like that.
So, several of our students are actually tutors now. So it's
Yeah,
a win-win.
that's ideal. Right.
I love that term, the lingering learner. That's a classic. All right, great. Good conversation.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay,
You're
let's see what we're
welcome.
going to cover today.
Okay.
Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how we should be evaluating our tutor training workshops. So we're going to understand the purpose of evaluation, and we're going to look at some of the best practices of evaluation. And of course, why should we evaluate our tutor training workshops? Well, to gather and use feedback and to improve and refine our curriculum and to improve and refine our trainer skills. Now, this PowerPoint you do have in your Google Share Drive as well. So I mentioned Kirkpatrick at our last session when I went over some of the different materials and books of interest. He's considered a classic on how to look at your training and how to evaluate your training. And he has 4 basic questions that we're going to look at a little bit more in depth. So he says reaction, learning, behavior, and results. So question number 1, are the participants enjoying the training? It's a little easier to do when it's in person than it is over Zoom. Checking in often, seeing if they're enjoying it, are they, are they responding? So you want to check in with them. I like to just gauge around the room and see how everybody's doing, getting their responses, encouraging comments. Are they engaged or are they bored? Are they worried? They could even be worried. So are they enjoying the training? So some of the different tools that we can find out if they are enjoying the training would be in, some kind of a survey, an evaluation, whether it's a paper one or an online one. You can discuss open-ended questions like the most interesting thing I learned today was, and let them fill in the blank. You can provide statements for them to select, like I can't wait to start, or I don't think I can do this. We're going to take a look at 2 different survey tools. Okay, question number 2. Are the participants learning anything? Are they learning anything? Are they gaining new knowledge, skill, attitude? You know, we should be gathering information before, during, and after the training. We should have clear learning objectives. I think I've mentioned that before. The one thing I do like about the in-person training is I like to leave my learning objectives splattered around the room and remind them that we've done this. Is it enough content or is it too much? That is definitely a balance with a new tutor training. You know, you don't want to overwhelm them. You know, I know sometimes I've picked up from people that they can be overwhelmed if we talk too much about learning challenges, especially in a new tutor training. So we want to gather feedback. We want to have clear workshop goals. We get their feedback. I mentioned this a few times. I like to ask them, is this what you expected? When you signed up for this, is this what you expected? This is one of my favorite things to say. After I teach a concept, I will say, can you see yourself using this strategy? Can you see yourself using this strategy? I love to ask that after the language experience approach. Everybody shakes their head and says yes. We talked a little bit about the lesson plan exercise. I like to do that on my second day at the end of the day. I think it gives the tutors a lot of confidence, and I'll ask them.
Like figure out how to. I'm in a webinar right now.
Okay. We like to ask the participants, what tools they'll be using in their tutoring. Like to refer right in the middle of the workshop. Would you use this tool in your tutoring? Question number 3. Are the participants applying what they learned? Sometimes you won't know this until they're actually out meeting with the tutor when they meet with the learner. That's when you'll find out if they're actually applying what they learned in your tutor training. I know sometimes it can seem like you spent 2 full days training the tutors, and then they get matched up with somebody and they're calling you saying, what's the first thing I should be doing? So I usually give them like a goal sheet. I give them like a goal sheet, kind of like a learner skill assessment, what they would want to learn in the work, what they would actually want to learn when they meet one-on-one with their tutor. I try to give them a couple of tools. So this way, like the first 2-3 meetings, the tutor knows what they should be sitting down and doing with the learner, if that makes sense. And I usually point out, if they don't know what to do, open up that Let's Start book to the back of the book and use the sight word lists, the beginning, the intermediate, and the advanced, and taking notes on what they could do and what they couldn't do and what words they need to work on. But I pretty much try to leave the tutors with enough material for like at least the first 1, 2, or possibly 3 sessions. So this way they know what to do, especially those that don't have the confidence. So are the participants applying what they learned? We're not going to really know that until they're working with the learner. I like to use tutors as part of the evaluation team, looking at their activity reports. I don't know if your program is asking for monthly reports on what they're working on with the learner, what goals have been met, what techniques were used, what materials are being used. That's another great thing about having a quarterly, well, you don't even have to have a quarterly, some people have it monthly, a tutor enrichment workshop or just a tutor meeting. Just getting together with all the tutors is a great thing. Question number 4. Are learners able to learn better because of what the tutors are doing? Are learners able to learn better because of what the tutors are doing? So you get to take a little credit here as the trainer if the learners are doing better because of the tutors. You know, and be open to make changes from your tutors as you get their feedback. Probably a lot of you are using statistics in your adult literacy program. They can certainly give you insight, you know, number of learner goals that were met, you know, learner retention rate, learner attendance, learner referral, and volunteer retention. I actually like to keep numbers on things like that. I like to keep numbers on how many trained tutors I've trained and what's the retention rate. I'm a percentage girl. I like to go online and use those percentage calculators. So a few evaluation do's and don'ts. You know, if your tutor training workshop is not broken, well, then don't fix it. Keep your evaluation tools simple. You know, don't gather information if you're not going to use it. Evaluate continuously over time and celebrate success. I had an excellent volunteer who was one of our trainers, and she even liked to go to the Florida Literacy Coalition conference. And when we would come back from the conference, I always like to put a couple of slides together and share it with all the tutors and say, hey, this is some of the things we learned at the Florida Literacy Coalition conference. And I thought it was pretty cool that we did that. But this particular tutor trainer, a lot of times she just didn't want to change things. And I said, well, why? I would say, why do we bother to go to the conference if we're not going to change anything? You know, so I think you should feel comfortable to have that conversation, whether it's your tutors, your tutor trainers, if you have additional volunteer tutor trainers, or whether it's your colleagues. You know, I'd say, well, this is frustrating. We're going to the conference, but we're not willing to change anything. So, you know, that's why I like, don't gather information if you're not going to use it. So these are the different resources that I use to put that together. And you have this PowerPoint in your Google Share Drive. You probably are aware that SurveyMonkey is a free online survey tool. You can actually send that out to you can send a link out to your participants if you'd like them to fill it out online. I tend to feel if I don't hand them if I'm doing an in-person workshop and I don't hand them the form right then and there, and I don't get them to fill it out right then and there, I'm probably not going to get them to fill it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And a lot of times what I do is I sweeten it by I have a little a gift or something that they can be. I said, whoever turns it in, the minute you turn it in, I'm going to pull your name for this bag that's full of flashcards or whatever it is that I'm giving away. So this is one that I put together, and I've used different versions of this. And this is in your share drive. This is actually in your Google Share Drive. And I always like to know where they heard about our adult literacy education program, if it was a flyer, if it was a newspaper article, if it was a radio station, if they heard a presentation that I made when I was out. So I like to know that. And then one of the questions I have on there is, you know, do you feel that this 12-hour tutor training has prepared you to be an adult literacy tutor? And the very much, somewhat, not at all, the comments. So I will actually figure out if, you know, 23 out of 25 participants said very much, I will figure out my percentage there. And just for me, after my tutor training, I like to know what percentage felt it was worthwhile, or if it's prepared them. Now, if you ask the Florida Literacy Coalition for their materials grant, I always sent them this. I always sent them what percentage felt they were prepared, or what percentage felt that the handouts and materials were useful. I don't know if they require that, but when the Florida Literacy Coalition sent me out as the trainer, this is what I would report back to them.
Mhm.
And then you want to know if their questions about your local program and their role as a tutor were answered. You know, how relevant and useful do you think the materials, handouts will be in your tutoring sessions? And people will write things in there. Like, I love the folder. I love the rainbow handouts. You know, people will actually write things in on this. And then on the back, just some of these more open-ended questions. You know, what did you enjoy most? A lot of times they would say, when we had 3 trainers, they would say they loved how the 3 trainers worked well together. We've even been called a well-oiled machine. So it's interesting. You know, what did you find most useful? They love to hear stories. They always write down, they love to hear real world examples and stories. And then how could we make this tutor training workshop better? A lot of times they would say, make it 3 days or longer, or they would say, you know, nothing, it's good as is. So it's interesting to see. I have like literally 15 years of of this particular evaluation filled out. So and then, do you feel ready to teach? Now, this is another training evaluation that's not mine. This was actually, I think this was based off pro literacy, but it was shared by a participant in one of the other tutor trainings.
Mm.
And it's interesting that they also, not only do they have the tutor fill this out, but they actually had the trainer fill one out as well to report on how they felt it went. You know, so they're asking about the objectives. Was participation encouraged? You know, the topics covered, were they relevant? Was the content easy to follow? You know, were the materials helpful? How was the trainer? Was the trainer knowledgeable? Was the trainer well prepared? By the way, this is also in your Google Share Drive. So, and these are in like Word documents. So you can actually take and use whatever you want to use here. And then they asked about, was the time allotted sufficient? They even asked about the meeting room. Now, going back to the meeting room, if you don't have a regular meeting room where you do your tutor training, or you don't know what you're walking into, that can sometimes be difficult as a trainer. I will say I've had that. You can't always control, you know, the room, can't always control that, but I will bring a lot of things. If I have to go on location, I will bring like posters on foam core board, so I can just post them around the room. I just try to make the room look as inviting and as educational as I can. So keep that in mind. You know, if you have to go on location ever, you might have to bring extra things with you. You know, like the tack. Sometimes I bring the tack and I put it up, or whatever, just to make the room look inviting. And so when the participants want to take their eyes off you for a minute, they have something to look at around the room. The other thing with the room, if you're not always in the same room, keep this in mind. This is another reason why I like the 2 days. I will have participants ask if they can leave things in the training room. They will often say, can I just leave these? Of course, not a value, like not a pocketbook or something overnight, but I will have participants say, oh, can I leave my lunch bag in that fridge? Or can I leave my notebook here, you know, overnight? And so keep that in mind. If you have to give the room up to somebody else, that might be a question that your participants might be asking you. So, and then here's some additional questions here. You know, what did you like most? What aspects of the training could be improved? Do you feel this training will help you tutor your learner? I think 15 might be hard for a new tutor. You know, what additional tutor trainings would you like to have in the future? Sometimes they don't know what they don't know. So that might be a tough one. And then please share other comments or expand on previous responses here. So here's 2 examples of tutor training workshop evaluations that you can use. Okay, before we go any further, what questions do you have about tutor training evaluations? Or does anybody have anything to share about their tutor training evaluations? Is anybody using a Likert scale where it's, you know, numbered from, you know, 0 to 5 or 1 to 5?
On the back of our tutor training evaluation,
Mm-hmm.
the place where the prospective tutors write the dates and times they would be available, the type of student they might want to work with. And I think that makes that sheet of paper pretty important to them.
That's good. So you're combining it with the evaluation.
Yeah.
That's
The
good.
person who assigns students to tutors is not the same person who does the training, so they need to have that information, especially.
That's good. That's a good point, Janet, because I actually would say something to the effect to the tutors too. Go ahead and write whatever you want on their notes to me. Like, I never want to teach math, or I only want to teach math. I would tell them the same thing. Nobody's going to see that evaluation but me. So I even tell them, write me notes on there. That's good.
Had prospective tutors find out that we do things like GED preparation or citizenship preparation. And so some of them actually want to volunteer to do just that. So they
Yes.
get encouraged to write that down on the form so they can be matched up with somebody that they specifically would enjoy working with.
That's great. That's definitely how you retain your tutors, right? Keeping them happy.
Yes.
Okay. So the next PowerPoint we have here, and this is also in your Google Share Drive, we're going to touch upon some learning differences or learning challenges. And I have different versions of this depending on if I want to share more or less. So it's really up to you what you want to share at your new tutor training. I do make sure I have several resources on hand about how we can work with learners that have challenges. So this way they know that they're supported, the tutors will be supported. And I always tell them, your learner may not know if they have a learning challenge. They may never have been diagnosed. But I always tell them, if we know about it, we will let them know about it. If the learner shares that information with us, we share that with the tutor. So here's some LD terms. You know, learning differences is about understanding the individual strengths and the weaknesses. Learning difficulties is about enriching those areas of weakness. And learning disability is the accommodating, that's actually the legal term. And those learners are protected by federal laws, especially in the school system. And you'll sometimes hear they needed accommodations when they were in the school system. They will sometimes use that term. Here's a few facts about learning differences. They can affect how a person understands, how a person remembers, how a person responds to new information. They never go away. They can't be cured. Learning differences are not a lack of intelligence. And learning differences are not easy to identify sometimes or to diagnose. Here are a few statistics on learning differences. There's 4.6 million Americans who report having some kind of a learning difference. 66% of those diagnosed tend to be boys. 46% of working age adults with LD are employed. 19% tell their employers, only 19% tell their employers. 5% have special accommodations. 84% see learning differences as a growing concern in the US. 96% of parents believe that proper teaching can help their child with a learning difference. And then they do say about 30 to 50% of the population is walking around with an undiagnosed learning difference. And this information came from www.understood.org or www.ldonline.org. I have a couple of more resources in a folder on your Google Share Drive too, from these particular websites that you can download. So there's different types of learning differences. It could be difficulty in reading. It could be a difficulty in listening. It could be a difficulty in thinking. It could be a difficulty in talking. It could be a difficulty in writing. There could be a difficulty in spelling. There could be a difficulty in math or executive functioning skills, like not knowing how to keep a planner or a calendar, or even ability to focus. I always tell the tutors, we shouldn't be afraid of working with a learner with a challenge, and that they can always come to me or anyone, the other people in the program to, get additional resources if need be. A lot of us have heard of dyslexia. It's a term associated with specific learning disabilities in reading, where they will often mix up the letters or they just struggle with reading. So some of the things are, you can color code the letters that are easily mixed up, like B and D. You can read together out loud. You can teach prefixes, suffixes, and combining words. Work on the fluency, with those sight words. And there is a lot of research that says the larger print can help with people that are struggling with reading or for the new reader. And then people with dyslexia may find comfort in having more quiet time. Dysgraphia refers to people who have specific learning disabilities in writing. I actually have met only one learner that literally, he was amazing. He was an English language learner and was very intelligent and wanted to help run the conversation club. I mean, he was there like every week, and he became like a literacy ambassador for us, but he literally could not write anything. He's actually the only person I've ever really met that literally could not write anything, and you would never know it when you talk to this particular man, because he had very outgoing personality, very involved in, like I said, in our English conversation club, but he just struggled with writing. So some of the ways to help somebody with dysgraphia would be, they say, using mechanical pencils or specialty pencil grips on the writing utensils, using unlined paper, encouraging print or manuscript letters and not cursive. You know, air writing is literally putting your finger up in the air and writing in the air. Teaching sentence structure, and then avoiding writing by using oral exams to check for comprehension, like open-ended questions. And then dyscalculia is for those that struggle with math. They suggest using graph paper, you know, being able to use your fingers, counting on your fingers to figure out those math equations. Color coding each math function by using colored pencils, using enlarged symbols, you know, having addition and multiplication tables and formulas in front of you, and then working with some manipulatives. There are quite a few math manipulatives out there. There's like fraction bars. If you Google fraction bars on Amazon, there's like counting tiles. Of course, there's multiplication cards and things like that that could be helpful. And then there are some misconceptions about reading. That some people believe that all problems seeing print can be corrected with glasses. Well, that's not always the case. Some people may believe that black print on white paper is best, and that's not always the case. White paper does not always look white. You know, not everyone can see groups of words clearly. Not everyone sees the letters, words, or numbers the same way. Not everyone sees print the same way. Some people see their print and it's always moving. And then another misconception is that good reading skills are all that are needed to read. So I like to pop up a couple of these slides when I do a new tutor training. And then I do talk about the Erlen method a little bit. So for years, if you're not familiar with Erlen, now the strips that I have there in the slide are not actual Erlen strips, because Erlen uses a full 8.5 by 11. It's like a paper size of a colored reading overlay. These are just, these are smaller strips, more affordable strips, especially if you're giving them out to tutors. And these, if you just, I think you just Google like colored guided reading strips on Amazon and they come up. You usually can get a whole set for like $8. Okay, so there's some research saying that these will help, the colors can help people. If you go to erlen.com, you can actually change the background of your computer to see how you read best. It's kind of interesting. For many, many years, I am an Erlen certified screener now. But for many, many years, I was not. And I just had this as an additional tool for the tutors. What I can tell you about this Erlen screening process is basically, it takes about an hour long for the assessment, and the participant that you're doing the assessment on, their eyes get so tired because you're looking at a whole bunch of little X's and really tiny text. Your eyes get so tired, and then we're putting the colored overlays over and seeing which ones you read best with. You know, I don't know if it's a real science, but anytime I have an additional tool in the toolbox for the tutor, I like to have it. I know myself, I read best with the bright blue. I've seen a lot of people reading best with that bright yellow. And I have seen probably one of the most impressive things I've ever seen was a young man in his mid-20s who he literally could not put a sentence together until we gave him that pink overlay. He could read cat, he could read hat, he could not read the cat in the hat until we put the pink overlay over. Then all of a sudden he could literally read the sentence. So, you know, is it something to keep? You might want to keep them in your literacy program. Erlen says there's no rhyme or reason, basically. What's going to work? You literally have to test all the colors. So I literally will give the whole set of color strips to my tutor and let the learner try them and see what is most comfortable for them and if it helps or not. So this is an example. Of course, then they get more into it, like after you become an Erlen screener, you can become an Erlen diagnostician that can actually prescribe colored glasses. It's pretty amazing. If you ever, I've seen the trunk, what it looks like with all the glasses and everything, but anybody could go to a regular optometrist and probably order a tint on their glasses. So, you know, take it for what it's worth. If you know, if you want to know more, you can go to erlen.com. You can sign up for an online training. They actually have online trainings. There's only one woman in the state of Florida who does the trainings. Her name is Mary, and you'll find her name online. I went and spent 2 days with Mary. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, you can take a look. So this particular person shows what their writing was like on the left-hand side before they used the glasses, and then on the left, and then on the right-hand side after they had the glasses. They were able to just write better, read better, put their thoughts together better. One of the other things for those who have that light sensitivity or tends to have some of the Erlen difficulties, believe it or not, baseball cap can help. I thought that was one of the most fascinating things I got out of the training, was because of that bright glare, overhead glare, a baseball cap might actually help somebody, or a visor to keep that light out. So if you've never seen some of the different examples of how people see text, I'm just going to show you a couple. When I have a tutor training, I will admit that I show all the different texts. Here I only put 3 in here, but I just like to show people that people don't see text the same way. Okay, so here's an example. So there's about a dozen different ways that people see text according to Erlen. This one is called the washout effect. This one is called the halo effect. And this one is called the rivers effect. And like I said, there's about a dozen of them. There's even one that looks like the Star Wars effect. So I think it's good to be aware. And, you know, I've had some colleagues who told me that they thought, well, I don't know if this is a real science or not. I don't know either, but if it's something that could possibly work, I think we should be open to it. I have put this in your Google Share Drive as well. This is like a quick self-test. And if you answer yes to 3 or more of these questions, then you might have that sensitivity syndrome or the Erlen syndrome, and you might possibly benefit from not using overhead lights, you know, or, you know, wearing a visor or using some of the colored overlays. Since we're talking about some learning challenges, I had mentioned this book in our last session, the Learning Disability Intervention Manual. And I had mentioned that it has 88 different checklists. So I just think this is a great tutor support book. And I have a lot of these scanned up. I've shared a couple with you in the share drive, But for example, if somebody has difficulty with phonics skills when reading, this literally will tell you how to overcome that. I mean, it literally gives you all these suggestions, like prepare a list of words from the student's reading material, which he or she does not recognize, and have the student practice the phonics skills using these words. Provide practice with reading the BL words, PL words, and PR words by presenting a high interest paragraph or story that contains these words. So they're talking about the blends, working on the blends. Just great ideas on how to try and help somebody overcome some of those challenges. Love this book. Okay. Let me see if there's any questions, or what questions do you have about anything that we just talked about?
Could I see that slide on the learning difference?
Learning differences again? This one, the Learning Disability Intervention Manual?
I think she's muted.
Okay. Let's see. There's
It's
a
like,
couple of questions. I'm sorry.
oh, it's like 4 or 5 slides back.
Okay. I can go back again. Okay, so there's a couple of things in the chat box. So regarding the eval, Mona said she likes the open-ended questions. I do too. And then Sue was asking about how tutor training evaluation results are recorded and shared by other organizations. I don't know if there's, I mean, I like to record mine. I mentioned I like to do my percentages. I don't know if they're shared. I don't know if they're shared with other organizations. Oh, and Broward uses a Likert scale of 1 to 5.
Oh, I
With-
think she means, sorry.
Yeah.
Are you asking like platforms in which to make evaluations like SurveyMonkey? I know a lot of organizations use SurveyMonkey or JotForms or Google Survey. Google Survey is free, so that's a good option. I can put a link
Oh,
in the chat.
yeah, that sounds good. And then Broward said that they use the Likert scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being excellent. And they have a comment section as their last question. Mona mentioned about struggling college students. 25% tend to not finish college. Let's see, Linda sent a link for the, she sent an Amazon link, I think, for the overlays. Yes. Yes, the guided reading helpers on Amazon. Thank you, Linda, for that. Oh, and Zara just put in their Google Forms allows you to create surveys and evaluations. That's good. Okay, let's see. Was it this, Mona, that you wanted to know?
No, it's 2 more forward, like. That's it. That's it.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so reading, listening, thinking, talking, writing. I know I can go to the actual site for that, but that particular one I just I wanted to write them all down. And
Okay.
then on where it says thinking differences, is that some kind of reference to psychological problems?
Thinking on this slide, Mona, on this slide?
Yeah, where it says it goes reading, listening, thinking. So thinking as a learning difference, is that a reference to somebody having a psychological problem, like
No, it's
taking
just,
things?
yeah,
You
it's
know,
just that everybody, it's interesting how I've had quite a lot of experience working people with on the spectrum. I actually have employees now that are on the spectrum, and I've had family members that are on the spectrum. So I think it's just it's just a way. I'll give an example. One of my employees, you have to give her so much warning that you're coming in her direction, otherwise you'll startle her.
Oh my goodness.
Like I literally would have to say, "Hey, Mona, hey," like
Yeah,
before I
yeah.
open the door to where she's sitting, because she'll be like, "Oh," she'll be, So, yeah. So
Oh,
it's just the
okay.
way they think and react.
Yeah, okay. I think I get it now.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. You also have this PowerPoint in your Google Share Drive, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to give and receive feedback. I've been in a managerial position. I've been a library manager and library director for many, many years. So I'm comfortable giving and receiving feedback, but this has to be a learned art for many people. And and can you give the feedback with compassion? You don't want to, you want the person to be accepting of your feedback. So, but I think this is a great topic, because this is one of the pro literacy trainer concepts, is that especially if you're training in a group, it's great to be able to give each other feedback and feel comfortable to be able to give each other feedback. Like I think I've mentioned this before, in my last place of employment, when I would be out, even with my big boss, doing a presentation to a leadership academy or some kind of a big academy, where there were quite a few of important people in the room. Afterwards I would say, well, how did that sound? Did I make sense? Or, because it wasn't always the same, because there would be questions and I would have to field the questions, and I would ask, how did it sound? Did I make sense? And I never really got the feedback. And then when I've had colleagues who I supervised have sat in the back of my room when I've done the presentations, and I would ask them, and I never really felt like I got feedback. The only time I ever felt I got feedback is when I went through the pro literacy credentialing. I did that with a couple other staff members, and because we all went through that pro literacy credentialing together, the three of us were comfortable giving and receiving feedback for one another, if that makes sense. So just want you to consider this today as we go forward through this. And this PowerPoint is in your Google Share Drive as well. So there are two types of feedback. There's corrective feedback, and then there's reinforcing feedback. And with the corrective feedback, the giver wants the behavior to change. So usually it's negative. It's something negative that we want to correct. With the reinforcing feedback, the giver wants the behavior to continue. So it's usually a positive type of feedback, something that they're doing is great and we want it to continue. So receiving feedback is definitely a learned skill. And, tips for receiving feedback. So we want to listen, and we don't want to respond right away. We don't want to be reactive. We don't want to be defensive. And if we look at it from the perspective that this feedback will make you a better trainer, I think that's a good way to look at it. And we should thank the person for their honesty and let it sink in. And I love the part where, if you understand that this feedback will make you a better trainer. I know as a trainer, I'm not the best over Zoom. I know that. And so I'm actually I just purchased some new materials on how to be a better trainer digital, in a digital format. So I think as trainers, if we're not trying to improve, then we're not trainers. So additional tips for giving feedback. We want to know our motivation, are we doing it for the greater good for the person? Be aware of your behavior. Be aware of I think that says choice of words, but I think it got cut off. Be aware of your choice of words. Be aware of your tone of voice. And express genuine care and concern and state specifics. I know I mentioned to you, like in proliteracy, when I would do the observations for people, I would say, Trish did a great job on management of the tutors when she did an activity. She would set the time. She would say, okay, we're going to take 10 minutes on this activity. She would let them work in small groups. She would walk around and say, okay, great. How are you doing here? Are you needing additional time, or do you think, are we going to be able to finish up in 2 minutes? She was looking at the clock and saying, okay, we have about 2 minutes left to go. Finish up your last thoughts. She did a great job with time management in the workshop. So that's how specific they would want you to be on the observations. So additional tips for giving feedback. We always focus on the behavior, not the person. We listen to the receiver's response. And we have to understand that the receiver has the right to not to do anything with that feedback. If the receiver, doesn't want to accept the feedback, they don't have to. And always make sure the timing is right. So when I would have a new tutor training, one of my absolute pet peeves at a tutor training is when I would see some of my colleagues like not be prepared. Okay, so let me give you an example. People will come into your new tutor training workshop early. They will walk in and they will want your attention. So try to have the room set up, try to have your laptop set up, your screen, your whatever. I like to have the room set up with the Let's Start books on the table and the agenda on the table and a pen on the table and a name tent ready to be written on I like to have everything set up. And there was one time, that one of my colleagues, it was like we said the session started at 10 o'clock and like it was like 10:30 and we hadn't started yet because she was just running that far behind. Now, I know that's not going to help to say something at that moment because that's only going to take the confidence away. You just have to jump in and help however you can at that point. But, after the tutor training is over the next day or whatever, I would sit down and say, hey, was that the best training that we could have had? Did we put our best foot forward? Did our library look, did that make our library look great? Or could we have improved? Just having that honest conversation. So make sure the timing is right. You don't want to, say something right in the middle of the tutor training, because that would be devastating. You need positive and happiness during the tutor training. So you never want to say anything like that during the tutor training. I don't know if any of you have ever had a boss that did that, but I would have a boss that would do that to me. Like literally like 5 minutes before I'm going to present would want to tell me something really negative. And I'd say, hold on. I have to walk in there and be happy. I said, this is not the time and place for that conversation. So I had to learn and tell my boss what my boundaries were. I would say, you know what? That's not a conversation for right now. I'm going out there to ask for money, or I'm going out there to do, because I wouldn't see my boss a lot because we were in different locations. And so when we would get together and do a presentation together or go somewhere to ask for money or something, he would always say something. Hold on. No. Positive thoughts right now. We're walking in there, So sometimes you have to set those boundaries too. There's a time and a place, right? Okay, so when you solicit feedback from someone, you should, if you want to type this A, B, or C in the chat box, should you A, fish for compliments? Should you B, cut off the giver if you don't want to hear? Or C, be specific about the behavior that you want to receive feedback on? Go ahead and type A, B, or C in the chat box if you want. I see a lot of people getting this right. Good job, everyone. Good job. C. C is the correct answer. So are you ready to receive feedback? This is in your Google Share Drive. If you'd like to look at it and take it on your own, it determines if you are ready to hear feedback. It's something you might want to sit down with your other trainers and do this together. And the answers are there on the bottom. So this is something you could print out and talk about. It gives you a little talking point. And you can print this out. Okay, so this is our presenter feedback sheet, and this is also in your share drive. So when we get together and we do our presentation, our participant presentation assignment, and you share your activity or your PowerPoint or whatever it is that you're working on with the rest of the group on our last session, this particular sheet, I would like everybody to, if it's possible for you to fill it out. It is a Word document that you can write in on it. And it would be great if we would give this to each of the participants who presented. It can be anonymous. You don't have to put your name on it. I will fill one out for everybody. I will fill one out like I'm doing a pro literacy observation for you. But I think it's really nice whenever we did this course in person, the presenter would literally walk away with like 25 of these sheets. And it was interesting, hey, PowerPoint slide, maybe a little too wordy. Maybe you could make it a little more simpler. Or, hey, you did a great job on this. This was really funny. I love this particular story you told, or whatever it was. So it was kind of nice to see from your peers, to get that peer review. So simple questions, what worked well? What worked well with that particular presentation? What didn't work well? What, if anything, would you do differently if you were presenting the same training content? And what was your favorite part or your favorite takeaway from the presentation? I can email this presenter feedback sheet, no problem, in a Word document. I can do that. Can you actually read this, or is it not that clear?
I can see 1 through 4. Is there anything past 4?
No, that's all there is.
Okay.
So that's good. But
Yeah.
I can email this to everybody after today's class, and then you can have this for the next session. If you're struggling and you can't fill it out, like because you only have a tablet, that's okay too. I will make sure that I will fill one out for everybody. But it's
Yeah.
nice if other people can do it.
Yeah, I'd like to do it.
Okay, great. Okay.
How will they get their copies?
Okay, so Zara and I are going to put up a folder for each participant. on the
Oh, okay.
Google Share Drive. Now, I actually have given you all rights. You all have the same rights as Zara and I to those folders. I mean, you can, I believe you can all actually add your own name up there. I would have to see if anybody, yeah.
I actually just checked. They have the right to view it. I didn't have rights to add a folder.
You didn't?
No.
Because I gave everybody all the rights. I'll try and do it again.
Okay.
Okay. I can add everybody's name, but I tried to give everybody the full rights because I was even worried if somebody might delete something by accident, but
Right.
because there's like editing, I gave everybody editing rights, but it still didn't let you do it.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
So I can't even make the folders for like all the
Okay.
students.
Okay, I will try to look at that and I will try to make the folders, but I'll still try to see if I can send it out to everybody to see if it works.
Okay. Well, send it to me and then I'll test it and then we can send it out to everyone.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, I thought we should review some of the best practices that we've talked about in this course. So some of the best practices, that come through from ProLiteracy are that the trainer or the speaker, we have an introduction. We explain who we are. We give our credentials. We explain the need for literacy. We might want to give statistics like the need for literacy. We talked about, world statistics. We talked about United States statistics. We talked about state of Florida statistics, and you might want to talk about your local statistics. So that's, and giving your credentials and your information about yourself, that's not bragging, that's establishing credibility. So, and then we did talk a little bit about having like an orientation PowerPoint or an orientation to your literacy program specifically. We did talk about that as well as a best
Can I
practice.
ask a question, Susan?
Yes.
When we do our 5-minute presentation, do we have to introduce ourselves and go into our credentials like we were in a workshop training, or can we just get to the gist of our thing?
You can just get to the gist of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a good question. And then some of the best practices. Now, ProLiteracy does say 12 hours is their recommendation for a new tutor training. But if you have, if you have a smaller group, you could probably 10 hours might be enough. I will admit that when I have a 2-day new tutor training, and maybe I have listed, I don't know, 9:30 to 4 or something like that, or 10 to 4, I tend to let them out like 15 minutes early. Not more than that, not more than 15 or 10 minutes, because I don't want to look like I was unprepared. I don't want to look like I didn't know, the timing on my sessions, but I'll say something to the effect like, we all did a great job today. We got so much covered. What do you think? Should we wrap up the day 10 minutes early? And usually everybody's really happy about that. ProLiteracy does recommend having a variety of interactive training methods, lecture, role play or dialogue, small group work, multimedia aids. Now, I do like to show a film clip or two. Actually, I have about 3 different film clips that I like to show in some of my tutor trainings. I will show a little bit more. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So you might want to make sure that you switch things up a little bit. Keep their attention, keep it interested. We talked about having established time frames, creating your course content in modules, and knowing about how long it takes to teach that particular module so that you can switch it around or change your agendas however you see fit, and that you have some kind of a knowledge of how the day will go when you know how many minutes something takes to teach. We talked about having clear workshop objectives, and I mentioned a few times I like to keep them in the room. You probably need to talk about the clear tutor roles. Yes, I have had some odd things happen with tutors. Even though we've had this frank discussion of what's acceptable for a tutor and what's not acceptable for a tutor. And that'll be things that you specifically want to talk about that relates to your program. So I'll give you an example. We always had the tutor and the learner meet at the library, not, at their homes. Sometimes we did have it when they owned a restaurant or a nail salon. Yes, we would go there and do some English language tutoring there in small groups. But we have had some odd things where somehow a tutor and a learner started doing this back rubs and all kinds of things. So we said, hold on. That's not part of the literacy program. So yeah, you just want to make it clear, to remain professional, what's acceptable, what's not. And you can still have that conversation and still have things. We had another time where a tutor wanted to start charging. So that's why when I show you a document later, you'll see why it's in there, that there's not going to ever be a charge. So, you just have to be aware what's going on in your literacy program and explaining what is correct in your literacy program and what is unacceptable in your literacy program. So, you might want to have a standard go-to curriculum and handouts. And you want to include print as well as online resources. Some other best practices. Continuing education opportunities. I know some of you are saying that you do meet either on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, and just having some kind of an enrichment workshop, a tutor enrichment workshop, a continuing education opportunity. I mentioned before, I like to use that as an opportunity for me to learn something and to expand my own self as a trainer. Just having ongoing support and mentorship for your tutors is great. If they know that they can call you, if they know that they can stop by, if they know that you can email them a resource. I'm a big one to email things too. So I just had somebody yesterday and I said, oh, I have some scanned little easy to read passages. I can email those to you. So just showing, whatever it is, spelling rules. Oh, I can email that to you, whatever it is. We want to instill tutor self-empowerment. Yes, we have I've worked where we had some of our tutors only do assessments. We've had special tutors that just did assessments to help our program. But I also think that a tutor can be self-empowered to do like the where to lit start, or, they can also do assessments as they work with the learner. Being able to report their learner outcomes. We talked a little bit about achievement certificates. So I did put a couple samples in the Google Share Drive of achievement certificates. Are you giving your new tutors certificates when they're done with your new tutor training? I love to give them, I have a sample in our Google Share Drive. I love to give them a certificate that says that they completed this 12-hour course of training, at our library system. And usually I like to have one or two people sign it. If you have another trainer, have both of you can sign it. It kind of looks official if you do that. And they like it. We used to tease it and say it's a graduation. So at the end of the second day, we'd say, okay, we're gonna have our graduation now. And we would give out those certificates. Or you can, as they give you their tutor training evaluation, you can give them a certificate. But I always like a little bit of a little pomp and circumstance. It's, oh, let's celebrate. You might want to have some kind of an annual training plan. If you work in a library, you might want to let your staff know about what it is that you actually do a little bit, so that they feel more confident answering questions, especially your front desk staff will get questions about what the literacy program does and doesn't do. And so, you know, I actually would do that every so often, is train the library staff so that they're aware what we do, what we don't do. You know, we're not here to read a master's level paper and make corrections to it. That's what the college has, their own writing lab. That's what the college has. You know, so sometimes staff are not always familiar with what it is, what the mission and the vision are of the literacy program, unless we let them know. And so an annual training plan to help your staff know that is probably a good thing. Internal staff are the trainers. I think that's really important for future sustainability. You know, you do want to be able to hold your own tutor trainings and not always have to ask the Florida Literacy Coalition to send somebody. I think this course can help with that. I think pro-literacy membership can help with that. We talked a lot today about post-evaluation, survey and feedback, you know, and the questions, you know, did they learn? Did they enjoy? And are they ready to teach? And we talked about revising and improving the workshops based on that survey feedback. I did talk a little bit about the Newman's literacy model. I thought I'd just pop it up here for you again. I think it gives a literacy program a lot of credibility to say that we base our literacy program on an actual literacy model. And it's Newman's literacy model, came out in the 80s. And it really focuses on knowing the individual needs and knowing the individual interests of the learners, setting goals and objectives. And we talked about having relevant, immediate, and obtainable goals. And then the word recognition strategies, you know, remember the sight words and the phonics and the context clues and the word parts and the word families. And then the language experience approach, which, remember, I have a slide that you can actually use that and my trainer tips in your Google Share Drive. And the language experience approach is just when you ask the learner to give you a couple of sentences about something they did last weekend, or tell us about a holiday, how you celebrated, or whatever it is. And then you work on that little paragraph together, making changes to it until it's correct. And the great thing about the language experience approach is that the learner is familiar with all the vocabulary because it is the learner's story. So that's why it is a very successful approach, the language experience approach. Okay, here are a couple more of the resources in your Google Share Drive. So I mentioned the literacy curriculum model. I actually scanned up all 16 pages. It's in your Share Drive. If you want to adopt Newman's literacy curriculum model, you can read it for yourself. I actually had borrowed quite a few books from the Florida State Library many years ago, all on curriculum models. And that's how I decided to go with Newman's when I saw it. But I have given you a copy of Newman's literacy curriculum model. In your Share Drive is the pro-literacy trainer competencies. Again, I think this is a great list to refer back to. You know, how to prepare for a learning event, for example, how to establish an appropriate learning environment, how to demonstrate professional presentation and platform skills, how do you actually go about conducting learning activities is one of their bulleted points, and using a variety of teaching techniques. How do you manage the group process? We talked a little bit about that. And how do you evaluate your training outcomes? So you can see where we came up with the content for this particular Train the Tutor Trainer course is based on those trainer competencies. This is a list I think that's good to refer back to, and that's why it's in your Google Share Drive. I've also put this in the Google Share Drive, and this is, you can actually change this up. You can take out the logo, you can change up the wording. So this is an example of our tutor agreement. You know, I will meet with my learner a minimum of 1 hour per week for 1 year. I will meet in a library. I will not accept payment for services. I will come to my tutoring sessions prepared and on time. I will contact my learner if I'm unable to tutor. I will communicate with the literacy services staff on my learner's progress and my learner's goal achievements. I will reserve and cancel my tutoring space as needed. I will protect my learner's confidentiality and respect his or her privacy. I will complete and submit the monthly reports on my volunteer hours. And I understand that learners sometimes stop out and that I may be matched with another learner, and I will have fun as I help my learner achieve his or her literacy goals. You've probably heard that before. We always tell the tutors that they stop out. The learners don't drop out. You know, life gets in the way. So if the learners know that if they have to stop, they can stop out, and that they're always welcome back. And we try to tell the tutors, you know, quote, they're not dropouts, they're just stopping out right now at this point. So this is something that I would have the tutors fill out at a new tutor training, and collect the half and give the other half back to the tutor. And here's where I would have like a little incentive, like a raffle basket. You know, I collect them in and make give out a little something here. So I've shared the tutor agreement. I'm not sure if you're using one. By the way, if anybody has any better resource than I've shared, please email it to me too. And then we also have a learner agreement. So, you know, it's a free adult literacy program. We would ask that the learner would meet for at least 3 months, and that the learner will meet with the tutor at least 1 hour per week for 3 months, and that the learner would not offer to make any payment, and that the learner would meet in a public library facility, and that the learner would have their own transportation, and that the learner will come to the learning sessions on time, and that if for some reason they're unable to meet the tutor, that they would let the tutor know. They would contact the tutor and let the tutor know if their schedule changes for any reason, and letting the staff know if for some reason they're unhappy with the tutor or the program or their progress, that they would let the literacy staff know. And also to have fun as they achieve their goals. So is the programs out there, is anybody using anything like a tutor agreement or a learner agreement currently?
That last one you mentioned about the 3 months, I mean, I can't read what's on the slide, but
Okay.
is it at the bottom?
Oh, it's actually second. So the first one is meet with my tutor 1-to-1 for a minimum of 1 hour per week. And then the second one is meet with my tutor for at least 3 months.
Okay, and then the one at the top is meet with them 1 hour per week for a year. Is that right?
We actually tell the learner for 3 months.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the tutor we would say a year, and the learner we would say like 3 months. Now, we recommend, at my tutor training, I would actually give this out to each of the tutors and have them fill it out with the learner. And these are available in the Google Share Drive, so you're welcome to change them or use them, or if anybody has anything else that they'd like to share about being successful with tutor and learner agreements.
I think my question got truncated. You have the learner and the tutor.
Yes.
You're saying they can agree together to choose the year option or the 3-month option?
So
And then
I'm sorry, Mona.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so here, this one is the tutor agreement. And the tutor agreement, we asked the tutor, because we've spent the time training the tutor, we asked
Right.
that the tutor will spend a year. Our hopes is that the tutor will spend a year with us. Now, of course, they're going to go.
But spend a year with the exact same learner?
Not necessarily, just a year with the
Okay.
program, just a year
Oh,
with the
I
program.
see.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Okay, that's just, not kind of like, I think the way it was. We were told, you work with this person a year unless they stop out or drop you or leave the country or whatever. You commit to work with that one person for a year.
Well, I
You
mean,
see what
yeah, I mean, and
yeah.
there could be things, maybe it wasn't the best match, or, I mean, I think we need some flexibility with that.
Yeah, I thought so too. So, yeah, that answers my question.
Okay, good. And then the learner agreement. So see the difference, the tutor agreement and then the learner agreement. Again, I mentioned my color paper. I always did one on blue, one on green, so this way I didn't mix them up. I also put this in your Google Share Drive. I included a listing of our different workshops. You can read the verbiage on them. So for a new tutor training, this is a 12-hour pro literacy certified workshop for new literacy tutors and instructors who are joining the library system as volunteers. The workshop is offered 2 ways, 2 full days in a live classroom format or multiple sessions in an online format. Participants will learn and practice proven methods of teaching and reading and writing and English speaking skills to adult learners. Topics include how adults learn, cultural differences, understanding learning styles, word recognition strategies, reading comprehension and writing strategies, and teaching conversational skills to English language learners, and creating lesson plans with confidence. So that's the actual description I've used many times. So one of the questions in our chat box is, why 3 months for the learner? Well, it doesn't have to be. You could make it 6 months. I think if I would tell the learner a year, they might be scared. They might not come. It's actually scary. I found out many times that learners are scared to come to the first session. They're scared they're scared they're going to know you and they're going to be embarrassed. They're scared they just change their minds sometimes. Sometimes they don't even show up. So I don't know. I just thought 3 months sounds less scary. But that's just, my opinion. If anybody has a different thought, I think here, let's see what they say here. Let's read what's in the chat box.
Do you have numbers for like how many learners drop out after 3 months?
No, it's not that they drop out after 3 months. They're most likely to drop out with the first 3 sessions. There's
Well,
actually,
no, yes, that's true, but I think that giving them, I think that giving or making them, like expecting them to commit to a whole year is overwhelming. I mean, some people hardly know what's happening from one day to the next or 1 week to the next, depending on their living circumstances. and
yes,
stuff. But
exactly.
3 months, I think, feels doable to anyone. But then
Exactly.
but then the question is, I mean, I think if they're in with the right tutor and there's there's that great relationship going and you've got all that energy and like, they're not going to drop out after 3 months. They'll just keep on going.
Exactly. Exactly. In fact, it's the opposite. Usually they don't want to drop out, but
Right.
exactly. I just think it's like a psychological thing. It's not, it's not that big of a commitment on their part, and they're more likely to stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're welcome. It's your literacy program, and you're welcome to, everybody's welcome to put what they see, fit. That's why it's good to have the discussion, so that we get different viewpoints. So yeah, and some people are saying that ESOL, your English language learner, wouldn't be able to understand that. And that's probably true. That's why we have the tutor sit down and fill it out with them. And then I've included our information here on a pre-GED tutor training. It's a 5-hour workshop designed to give adult literacy tutors an understanding of what is expected of pre-GED instruction. The training covers topics such as GED exam content, classroom management, learner motivation and goal setting, forming good study habits, note-taking skills, test-taking strategies, and looking at specific pre-GED curricula and syllabi. So nothing that we teach in the new tutor training is retaught in the pre-GED training. It's completely different content. And then the citizenship, again, that's a 4-hour workshop going over the U.S. naturalization exam topics such as American history, branches of government, important historical dates, and just giving out handouts and curricula. We share all that information at the citizenship tutor training. So are all of you or any of you doing different workshops? Like, are you doing a new tutor training versus a different pre-GED tutor training versus a different citizenship tutor training? I'm just curious.
We generally have tutors that say they are experienced in, comfortable with GED or citizenship. We don't particularly have training directed at that.
Okay. And that is working for you, Faye?
Right now, yes, because we have maybe a half a dozen tutors that are experienced. They've taught citizenship for a long time. They're comfortable with it. And so that's working for them. And I don't think we have any GED tutors that haven't said, I'm comfortable tutoring GED. And so we haven't had a sufficient demand to actually have extra training for that, although it's probably an excellent idea. If we're able to expand our literacy services, 95% of our adult learners are English as a second language. So we are not reaching the emergent reader community. And if the program is expanded in that direction, which was our original focus 50 years ago, if the program expands in that direction, then there will be a lot more need for additional specific training.
Yes. I've always noticed if I advertise something like a GED study circle, then all of a sudden I'll start getting a whole bunch of GED learners coming in. Like if that was one of my techniques. I would just advertise, oh, let's get together and have a GED study circle. And next thing you know is that I'd be getting an influx of all these GED learners. And at the time we were doing career online high school, so they would come in as well. But it was interesting because in Florida, whenever I did a pre-GED tutor training, I always got asked if people from the jail could come. And I thought that was a nice partnership. And they've actually written letters even for thanking us for the partnership, that we would invite them to come.
Our library currently has a display regarding GED prep. I haven't paid that close of attention to it because we are not a function of the library. We're an independent nonprofit who has an
Okay.
office in the library building.
That sounds like a nice partnership. And this is in your Google Shared Drive as well. These are some other explanations of different workshops that we have for the tutors. I also have an explanation of classes that we have for the learners in the Google Shared Drive. And I've changed these up different ways over the years, but this one is an assessment workshop. And I've actually only done this a handful of times. This is something that I would actually like to do more, where literally have the tutors come in and just talk about different assessments, and we try out different assessments. I thought it's a great idea, and I have some nice, pretty PowerPoints. But it's something that I would actually like to do a little bit more in the program that I currently have as well. And then if a new tutor missed any portion of the new tutor training, we would just provide instruction for missed teaching content. I would actually have a volunteer tutor who would actually go over that with the new tutor. We would tell them they missed the reading comprehension portion, or they missed the speech sounds portion, and then they could go over that with them. And then we've talked a little bit about the tutor enrichment workshop. I like to have them about 2.5 hours, and we would hold them at different locations. We always gave an update about what's going on in the literacy program, and always had quite a bit of new teaching content. And I love to put a tutor on the agenda. So I've had tutors before say, oh, I would like to do an exercise where I blindfold everybody and see how they can listen to it. I said, that sounds great. Let's blindfold everybody and let's try that activity. So if if a tutor wants to contribute, I would gladly put their name on the agenda and give them a time slot.
Susan, are these just sample workshops that we would create, or is it something where the Adult Literacy Services provides for potential tutors to attend?
So this is something that I provide, my literacy program provides to tutors to attend. So once we've done the new tutor training workshop, they might want to come to a citizenship workshop eventually. They might want to come to a pre-GED training workshop eventually. They might want to come to an assessment workshop if they want to learn more about different assessments out there. So,
and do you have like a calendar of these workshops?
Yes. My favorite thing is to actually come up with a whole annual listing. Like, okay, so, January, we're going to have this, and, these dates. I actually like to have a whole annual list of dates. And so this way the tutor can put it on their fridge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see here. Just reading some of the things in the chat. Mona is saying that she would like some additional trainings going on. as a volunteer. Linda is saying they're getting back to tutor training and they're going to focus on the adult basic education. And they might offer some short focused sessions via Zoom if there's demand. And okay, great. Yeah, I did not find a lot of literacy programs were doing this many different workshops when I was offered to go around and be a trainer. So that's why I'm sharing it with you in case you're interested. Okay, a couple more resources in your Google Share Drive. I mentioned the CASA's oral screening tool, and you can use this. It's in there. I'm just going to show you real quick. There, it also gives you the complete instructions right here, how to do it. So you literally are just asking, the learner. Now this would be for your English language learner. This would be for your ESOL learner, your ELL. I don't know if anybody's ever used this CASA's. This is a real simple one, and you are allowed to copy this and use it. Some people, I don't know if anybody's using CASA's, either the online or the paper books. You actually have to get certified if you're going to use anything more than this. And their process is actually free. You can take all their classes online for free. If anybody wants to know more, I could probably send you some links on that. So they're pretty strict if you purchase their books and you do the, I'm not talking about this one. This one is free and open to anybody. If you actually want to do the real CASA's with their books that you purchase, they're very strict about it. You have to like monitor it. You can't let the book leave your site. You have to keep the books locked up. So, but it is a very useful tool. In my last place of employment, we have all the books. We do have them locked up there. I don't know if they're still using them, but yeah, it's a very useful tool. But this is a real simple one and anybody can use it. So I've stuck it in your share drive as another tool in your toolbox. There's a couple more I put in there. I didn't make a screen print of all of them. There's like I showed you the other day, the READ, R-E-A-D, and also I think it's called the ESLOA from ProLiteracy. Those complete assessments are in your folder. There's something called the Intercambio, which I have that assessment in your folder as well. That's for English language. I just stuck a couple things in there to help you if you want a little bit more assessment. The other thing, I don't have a screen print of this, so I apologize. But there's a lot of different adult literacy and career tests and inventories that you can purchase. One of the ones that I like, if you go to jist.com, jist.com, they make all kinds, even like financial literacy. They make one that's like a picture literacy. They make barrier to employment. And if you go to gist.com, you can download all the administrator processes for free. You literally open up a folder and just download, and then you can decide if you actually would use this test or not before you purchase it. It's kind of neat. They'll give you samples too. I actually have quite a bit of samples in a folder here. So I've asked for samples. I've downloaded all their administrator guides. I haven't actually used any of them recently, but it's just a new area that I'm looking into. So just wanted you to be aware that you can, that those things are available. And then the one other thing I did put in your share drive was I put 2 different first meeting video clips. Now, I don't know if anybody's showing, is anybody showing any like a first meeting video clip at your tutor training now? Is anybody using that and using a successful one?
We have a one that demonstrate a first session with ELL learner. But after participating in this course, it's an excellent example of tutor chatter that makes no sense to a ELL who has maybe, hello, how are you? I'm fine.
Yeah.
So there are periods in it that's very much directed, appropriate language from the tutor. And there are other periods where, I mean, she just talks on and on. Now let's look at this and here's the picture. And I mean, it's a excellent on more on what not to do, I believe.
Yes. Is it from Pro Literacy or is it from somewhere else, Faye? Do you know?
I think we made it
Okay. I
earlier.
think that's good. I like when literacy programs make their own videos. I think that's pretty cool. So has anybody ever seen the Pro Literacy one, the sensitivity, the other half of communication? Has anybody ever seen that? Okay. It's 16 minutes. It is in your Google Share Drive. It is actually very funny. It has some funny things because kind of like what Faye said, Nancy the tutor is so nervous and Nancy the tutor is so scattered. And the tutor, when I show it, it's kind of old because you know it's from Pro Literacy. It's an older video, but the tutors do laugh at it. I have used portions of it. Maybe I don't watch the complete 16 minutes, but tutors have laughed about it and will say, well, let's give Nancy a break. What did Nancy do that was actually right? You know, and they like to, oh, Nancy did this wrong and Nancy did that wrong. So it can be a fun activity. You watch it together and then we can write on the board, hey, what did Nancy do right? Hold on, let's give Nancy showed up. Nancy tried to come prepared. You know, Nancy met in the library and she told the learner what she looked like. So this way he knew how to find her, you know, so those types of things. So that's what Nancy did right. But then they always like to list all the things Nancy did wrong. So I've included those clips here for you. The other one is the first meeting is from the California State Library, and it's only 6 minutes, and they meet in a library. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice how to reach out and make that first contact. But I've used both of these. I think it puts the potential tutor at ease if you show something like this and you talk about what the first meeting is like. It definitely puts them at ease. So I don't know if there's other better ones out there, but these are two that I've used and I did put them on your shared drive. And if anybody has any other input about if they show a first meeting video clip or they talk about what the first meeting is like, I think that puts the tutor at ease a little bit. Okay. So what questions do you have about anything that we did today? Let me see. Yep. What questions do you have about anything? Could be about anything in the course or just if you about the presentation assignment, about anything.
Okay, so on the internet, it says that 5 minutes spoken is 700 words.
And it's spoken. Okay.
So I think I can't do my word count on my narrative right now, but I think it's like twice that, at
Okay.
least twice that. So I'm going to have to really break that down. It's kind of time consuming, but it's, you know, it's a worthwhile exercise because, you know, you get your bullet points, you get your point across, hopefully.
I mean, Mona, if you want to keep your presentation longer and, you know, and just say something like, you know, if I were doing this, I would teach the whole thing in its entirety. But
Yeah.
and you don't have time, that's okay. Because, you know, I think a good takeaway from this assignment is that you would actually maybe use this. Maybe you would actually use this in a tutor training.
Right. And like you were saying about when you have your new tutor trainings or even the enrichment workshops, you know, and one of the tutors gets up there and speaks about something,
I love
then
that.
yeah, and it's a perfect opportunity for somebody to work on their speaking skills. But still, you got to get up there and you can't just ramble. It's got to be focused, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
And
this helps with that. This helps with
good,
that.
good. And you know, one of the, you know, what happens to a lot of us is when we're nervous, we talk too fast, right? So we
Right.
always have to remind ourselves, you know, slow it down.
So there's
Right.
no sessions next week, right?
There's no sessions next week because I'm supposed to give you a time off so that you can create your presentation assignment.
But are you available?
I am.
In
Yes,
case-
and absolutely, I'm available. And I probably will email you even though we're not getting together.
Okay.
All right, I'm looking for questions here. Who's got questions?
Susan, I have a question. If we wanted to run one of the workshops that you just went through in terms of GED and
Mhm.
are there workshops like this one that we're attending now, this webinar, that we can attend to be competent to run a training program like that in our own organization?
If I were there, I would invite you. I used to invite anybody who wanted to come. You know, I've thought about if I should just record myself and just give it to Florida Literacy Coalition. I could probably do something like that.
You're so sweet. It's a great thing to have, but I don't even know where, if we were to present this, like where would we start? Similar to this class that we're taking, I mean, there's so much information and, you know, we need so much time to go back to the table and figure out what we want to do and how we want to use it and things like that. So I'll probably reach out to you then, I think.
That's fine. I don't mind that at all.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so we're not meeting next week. It came in the chat box. We are meeting Thursday, June 29th from 2 to 4:30. So that's a longer session. Tuesday, June 29th from 2 to 4:30 is our next meeting. And the whole reason you get a week off is so that you can create some awesome training content to share. And the question was, will I be around? Yes, I'll be around. Just trying to check the chat box and see what else is going on in there. Okay. Okay, very good. All right. Anything else before we leave? Everybody feel comfortable about the assignment? We,
We're scheduled to be here till 4:30 today or 4?
Today 4.
Okay, okay. I had it wrong in my calendar then. Okay.
I like this. You guys want to stay? I like this.
No, I just wanted to make sure I was on the right thing. And we're all going to present on the 29th. There's not that many of us. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
we're all going to present on the 29th, and we're all going to evaluate one another on the 29th. And I will send that out to you as a Word document, and I will keep in touch with you, even though we're not meeting next week. And Zara, are you available?
To meet?
Yeah, no, I mean, Zara, were you going to announce about sending out the evaluation?
Yes, I just put it in the chat. Before
Okay,
you guys
perfect.
go, I'm putting a survey in the chat just so that when we meet at the next session, we can discuss any concerns or anything you liked or any suggestions. So if you can please fill this out before we meet again in 2 weeks, that would be great.
That'd be great. And also, if anybody wants to email me and say, hey, I really want this, or I want you to show this, we might have time at the last class. Or if you're looking for something, or if you're looking for a resource, like you wish you had something on sentence tunes or more information on fluency, let me know, because I can zip you something. I've got everything scanned up.
So just make sure you copy and paste that survey link in your browser before logging off here.
Actually, you can click on the link and it'll take you and open up your web browser to that page and then come back to the meeting after you minimize it. So it's there. Sometimes I have trouble copying out of the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Faye.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And oh,
Oh,
Loretta just asked, has a question. I'm sorry, Zara, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Loretta has a question. Is there a free website that higher ESOL students could practice some reading or grammar or even listening? Yes, I think I put some in the book, but there may be others that have a quick answer.
StoryCorps and I believe are short. StoryCorps has a audio, sometimes video, mostly audio, but the transcript is below the picture. I don't remember if I believe has the transcript.
On page 52 in your Train the Tutor Trainer notebook, on page 52, there are a few English language learning websites. One is englishclub.com. Another one is esl-bits.net. eslab.com. So this is in your notebook. There's a couple different resources. talkenglish.com is another one. So if you have the notebook, if you want to go to page 52 and 53, you'll see those specialty ESL resources that are free.
I think Loretta was wondering if you could put a link to the StoryCorps. I don't know what it is.
It just StoryCorps, CORPS. Just type it and it'll come right up. And this, I believe, same thing. Just type it in the Google search bar and it'll come right up.
What was the second one?
This, I believe. I think it was Edward R. Murrow, one of the old greats, started it many, many years ago.
Mm.
I'll be
Thank
checking
you.
those out too.
All right, I put them in the chat. Does anybody else have any questions?
All right. Sounds like they're all ready to get their presentation started.
Yes. Just to recap on that, Susan will be creating folders.
Yes,
So
I'll
you
be
can
putting.
put your presentation in there, but if for some reason you can't, you can email it to Susan and I.
Yes, if you want to go ahead and email it to us just to make sure, and I will get it up there. Yes, I will. I have tried to give you all full editing rights, and for some reason it wasn't working. So if you do want to email it to just Zara and I'll make sure it gets up there. I will attempt again to send you all editing rights.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We'll see
Thank you.
on the 29th.
Sounds
Sounds
good. Thank
good.
you so much, everyone. Appreciate it. You've been a great
Thank you.
class. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.